Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Psychology for Growth YouTube channel. My name is Dr. Richard Amaral, and I'm a psychologist here in Ontario. And I am really looking forward to today to speaking with a good friend of mine. We haven't spoken in years. She's doing a lot of career counseling, a lot of vocational counseling. And in my book, The Promise Wheel, the letter O talks about occupation and why that's an important part of a balanced life and good for mental health. And so today, I'm looking forward to hearing Helen just give us share some of her experiences and insights regarding career and what that process is for people who are looking to change careers, for young people who are struggling to find out what to do as they enter adulthood. So, just a variety of topics. And without further ado, Helen, welcome.
Hello, Richard. Yes,
I
we
know it's been so
know each
long. Good
other.
to see you again.
It's been a long time. I was trying to think before we started this, and I truly can't remember. I do have a good memory of you.
Yeah.
You were in graduate school, and
I
we
was
went on.
undergrad, just going I was in undergrad, just going into graduate school.
Okay, and you
That's
showed up
right.
with a guitar, and it's like
That's right.
showing up to a party with a guitar was like, okay, let me get to know this guy. Anyways, thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation,
That's
and it's
fantastic.
just a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the
Yeah,
attention.
thank you. Thank you for taking time out of your day. So Helen, just sort of let us know who you are, what you do. Yeah, we'll just start with that.
All right, a little bit about me. My undergrad, I completed at U of T, and at the time, like many youth, I wasn't sure what to do. So I did a combination of a program in ethics, society, and law. And, most people ask, what is that? Well, I did have thoughts. I knew I wanted to be in some sort of role where I was making a difference, where I was
Mm,
helping others. Social justice was a big, big part of me. I was very fortunate to, right after my undergrad, I started working at U of T in the Career
mm,
Center there. So here I was, new grad, and what I felt I could assist most was with undergrads. I had just been through that experience. What do you do when you've completed a degree? You're thinking about graduate school, you're thinking about occupations. So I spent the next 5 years at the U of T in Student Services at the Career Center, moving through different positions and ending up in the career counseling office. And
mm,
that's when I thought, this is where I'm supposed to be.
this is your
And
jam.
just like many things, it's sort of happenstance. I also realized that probably why I wanted to assist youth is I was one of those. I was one of those
Right.
that I had moved to Canada just before turning 18, didn't know what to do, didn't know how to apply to post secondary. And as I grew in my career, I thought, that's where I'm supposed to be helping others. I spent the next almost 20 years actually at U of T in different programs, supporting students in undergrad, graduate, at a PhD level. I did some stints in social services. I worked with youth at risk. I actually worked with NAMI Res, which is an organization in Toronto that assists with the transition of Indigenous sort of moving into Toronto. So I got an exposure to
Mm,
everything from youth, midlife, adulthood, and to me, the core was transitions. So 2020 happened, and what I realized is I think I need to branch out of working with post secondary. So I started Azul Education Services, which really is working with youth in transitions. And by that, I mean from high school to post secondary, meaning university, colleges, trades, all sorts of things, and not just focusing on post secondary. I
mm,
did my master's in education and counseling. I did, just like anything, I'm sure you know, there's always professional development along the way. And
absolutely.
now I'm in private practice working with families, actually, youth, the parents, and just I think transitions is where I specialize. that. And
Hmm.
it's such a tumultuous time for many reasons. And I love what I do.
Good for you. That's great. Thanks. Yeah, so it's a nice breadth of experience. And one of the things that stood out for me there, Helen, was in terms of, I guess, the age of the people you were working with. It really does cross like some really like important years.
Mhm,
You got some young adults, right? There's maybe starting
mhm,
undergraduate, um, and then you've also got people in graduate school finishing off their PhD.
mhm,
And then also today working with families. But I
mhm,
wanted to go back to that population with the young people, those in their late teens, 20s, and,
mhm,
and, and even
mhm,
early 30s, because I
mhm,
didn't finish my PhD till I was in my early to mid 30s now. And
mhm,
yeah, it was a big long journey there. But I like how you also clarify that it's with transitions you're working with. So,
mhm,
Helen, what are some of the, I guess, some of the obstacles, the challenges, the things you hear that young people have a really hard time with
mhm.
as they sort of go through this transition of leaving school and what next? What are some of the kinds of things you hear?
At the core of it, it's really sort of individuals identifying who am I, what's important, what are my values,
Hmm.
what interests me, what's going to motivate me. And you're right, whether it be 17-year-old, 20-year-old, 30, 40, and beyond, that's at the core of it. When you're going through a transition, you question like most of it is what am I going to do next.
Hmm.
What I work with individuals, and they can be as young as 17, is really where do really it's about lifestyle and values and motivation, no different than later on is what's going to keep you going. In the case of school, what's going to get you up to take the courses, and really looking at a very holistic view. And it is about transitions. It's sometimes fear of the unknown,
Right.
it's lack of knowledge, not
Right.
knowing what's out there, what are the opportunities. And then lastly, really a better self-awareness. And
Hmm.
I have to say, I think that spans all ages.
Yeah.
It doesn't end in your 20s. It doesn't end in your 30s. Um, I
Good
started off
point.
thinking I was primarily working with youth, but what I found is then it's actually mamas and dads saying, I wish I had something like this when I was young, because here I am in my 40s and I'm still unsure about
Yeah.
where do I really want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that a lot. Sometimes, yeah, you get the parents of these kids. And I guess there are a couple thoughts I have regarding that. Number one is that, yeah, sometimes I think the parents being unhappy with or being a little stressed out with regards to the job, the career they have, and that sort of affects the message they send to their
Mhm,
kids. And that brings, affects their mental health as well in terms of stress levels. But the second point I wanted to mention, with related to that, is how um, I think a lot of times parents who are unhappy with their career will somehow guide, if you
mhm,
will, or strongly encourage, or even just flat out pressure their kids
mhm,
to do a
mhm.
career that the parents wish they had done. And I see that oftentimes, and it's incredibly stressful. And so I'm sure you must deal with that quite a
It
bit, especially since you're working with
it's
the family unit.
it's quite common.
Yeah.
I wanna touch back on how you said the O in your career wheel is occupation, and I think as a society, we have put that, um, we ask kids, "What do you wanna do when you grow up?" We ask parents,
Right.
"Are you doing what you love?" So, absolutely, I think I saw a lot of this during COVID. There
Mm,
were so many changes. Um, Young individuals were seeing their parents being laid off, a neighbor, and really, if anything, what I hear now is many parents saying, "I don't want my son or daughter or to go through that." The reality is, transitions are inevitable.
right.
When the I think there's so much research out there saying that more than 50% of individuals are not happy in their occupation. Now, of course, there's lots of factors to that, but at the core, something is not giving them the the insight or the drive or the motivation to look elsewhere,
Yeah.
or to find what's going to be the best fit. With parents, there's a lot of anxiety over, you hit on the part of sometimes parents wanting their kids to do what they weren't able to
Yeah.
realize in their own career. That is so common. Why my practice ended up a lot with parents as well is because it would start off with a mom or a dad saying, I really think that Tom should go into engineering because this is, going to give him the realization, a good salary, some
Yeah.
stability. And then I speak with Tom, and Tom has no interest. And Tom is thinking, my parents don't understand that, like, yeah, I'm good at math and science, but I really want to be creative. So this, I think, is not new. This
Mhm.
has occurred, for years and years. What's happening now, I see with parents, is they do feel there's so much more opportunities and the process is more complicated. With
Yeah.
technology, everything is accelerated, everything. So for a parent, they're thinking, how can I prepare my child, my kid for the future? And the kid is seeing, well, the future seems to change so rapidly. And for me, it's bringing it back to, we know that's going to be rapid, and to look into what's at the core of this. Because regardless of technological advancements, options, what I've seen even with my own career and what I've seen with the students and adults I work with, is they keep coming back if they haven't hit on understanding, having a really, what are their core values and what's going to motivate them. And I
Mm.
guess I keep going back to this because until you identify that, you're kind of stuck. Now, a lot of kids will say, I want a good salary. What occupation is going to give me a good salary? And my
Right.
answer is often, oh, there's almost everything. You can find very successful artists, architects, teachers, doctors, all of that. My comment back is, let's see though, if you are looking at those occupations, I would say almost on a pedestal, is what is everything related to that? Is there a desire to help others? Is there a desire to create something? Is there a desire to fix something? And I have moved away in my practice, I would say, from what do you want to do when you grow up to more of like, what challenges you? What do you want to work on?
Mm.
What are those issues? Um, and then students start talking about mental health. I want to work on mine. I want to help on others. Okay, well, what does that relate? For others, it's I want to um, work in an area where I'm helping others, everything from cure diseases, treating people, healthcare. And so rather than the occupations, it's looking at what is that role that they see themselves in?
Mm.
What is it that is going to challenge them?
Mhm. I like that. Um, and I'm just here thinking, listening to what you're saying and listening to sort of the direction you take them and how different that is from some of the, advice or some of the guidance I got from supervisors in counseling where, when I started working, I remember working for a particular agency, and was just consulting with one of the managers of this counseling agency, and I brought up the topic of career counseling because I was thinking, hey, I got a few people on my caseload that are pretty stressed about the job and really questioning
Mhm.
whether this was the right choice. And some of the feedback I got was, well, one thing to do, Richard, is you can explore what they are good at.
Mm,
So it's like, what are their skills? And I think that's definitely one avenue to explore.
yeah,
But thinking about what you just said, a lot of people can be good with a lot of things, but they don't want to do it for a living. Do you know what I mean? I
absolutely,
Yeah, I
absolutely,
might be
and that's what
good
you
at.
hear a lot
Yeah.
is, I'm really good at accounting. I've been doing accounting for 20 years, but I happy? Am I satisfied with my career? Not really.
No.
And so
Yeah.
the skill-based thought on career counseling is, absolutely, that is truthfully, for some, it is skill-based, but it's
Mm,
so much more than that. If
yeah.
you just stick with skills, what you're doing is essentially is, um, developing on only what you're good at as opposed to what you want to be working on.
Oh.
And so to me, career explorations, skills actually, when you think about employability, to many employers, especially for junior positions, skills is at the bottom. I hear so
Hmm.
often when I worked at U of T and working with employers, it was, we know that they're not going to be, at an expert level in this skill. We want individuals who are who are eager to learn, who are resilient, who are have a good self awareness to essentially get along with others, which is problem solving, which is team building. And
Right.
those are all those soft skills. But when we talk about, just as you said, well, focus on their skill, we tend to think about technical skills. We tend to think about what is it that they're competent at. And that's just a starting point for me. That's great. These are your competencies, but that's not all of you. That is
Right.
something that you have an aptitude for. The Holland theory of career counseling looks at that, like what are your aptitudes, what may be the best occupation related to those skills. That is just one model. There are others
Yeah.
that are looking at self actualization, and that's probably where I focus on, because to me, where there's success is
Hmm.
when someone at the end of a session goes, I hadn't thought about that.
Okay.
And that's digging deeper. It's also something that I think the sooner we, and why I decided to work mostly with young youth now, was the sooner they can get to that idea, it ends up impacting their entire career. I was very fortunate. I had volunteered at the university in the Career Center because I didn't know what to do. And I kind of fell into it. But here I am 25 years later, and I'm back to my core. I'm back
Mm,
to I want to assist youth,
mm,
which I have done throughout my career. But I worked with different populations because I was skilled at it. Okay, I've worked with a very diverse community. So Helen, work on this project. Um, I think it's taken even me a while to say, well, where did I, at the end of the day, think, "Oh, great, I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Let me look at my appointments," as opposed to dreading, oh no, I have to do this. And if we have an opportunity to allow students to explore that earlier, they're better off as individuals, contributing to society, growing in their families. My sad part is that's what's been removed out of, in Ontario at least, in the curriculum in education. There used to be a course that you would take. There was an extra year in high school
OAC. That's right.
where you
Grade
had a
13.
chance to, grade 13, to me still, that allowed them to mature.
Yeah.
a while too. I hear it all the time
Yeah.
now. What's been quite common is gap years. Gap year meaning you've completed your university, your, sorry, completed your high school diploma, and you're really not sure. And to me, that is their opportunity to ideally that gap year. You have an intention, and one of that is to discover where do you want to go next. So it doesn't mean take a gap year and spend your time on the sofa watching Netflix. It does mean for some it's travel, for other it's actually work, trying to work in a certain industry, and for others it's really self-discovery.
Mm.
And I think once that grade 13, once that extra career course was taken out, because now it's an online course. Now, I went through this with my own two children. They would come home and they'd say, "Okay, I have to do this. I have to prepare a resume, and I have to think about what I'm going to do next." And I'm like, "So you're supposed to do this all on your own at the age of 17?"
Exactly.
We put a lot of pressure on young adults to know what they want to do with their lives. Yet, when I speak to their parents and myself, well, that's a whole process. It's not something that just kind of goes, "Aha, I know what I want to do." Um, and where I have found, when I looked at sort of what was the options for students to discover this, it really requires time, time
Mm.
that doesn't exist. If you
Hmm.
All schools have guidance counselors and their workload is intense. I know many fabulous guidance counselors. The reality is they have about 5 minutes with students. And when your caseload is 350 students, priority is course selection, course dropping, mental health. Career exploration goes really to the bottom. And
Right.
I would advocate that that's the piece that they need the most, actually, to make those decisions early on. The first career decision impacts the rest of your life. Now, it doesn't mean you can't change it. I work with career changers all the time, but it has such an impact because if it is a positive first entry career, you really start to build. If it is a negative, you will go from a negative career decision to another one very easily.
Hmm. Yeah. The that piece around the 5 minute, wow, I had no idea that that's the reality in some of the secondary schools. I mean, I do know that these guidance counselors in the high schools have to deal with things such as the timetable, conflicts, scheduling, sometimes filling up university applications, and especially some mental health issues, right? That
Mhm,
that students
mhm,
who have been identified as struggling with some kind of difficulty, mental health difficulty, send them to the guidance counselor. And
mhm.
you're right, that career piece gets dropped down.
Because it's learning disabilities, it's aptitudes. There is so much going on, and I remember thinking, do I want to be a guidance counselor? And everyone I spoke to, because to me, career exploration is also talking to people,
Hmm.
speaking with people,
Yeah.
interviewing someone who's in that profession. Is they were all really burnt out and
Really.
again, I don't have a caseload of 365. That would be
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah.
And there is so much that comes up on a daily basis. You know that as a psychologist. There could be life happens. You can have a death of your dog, of a family member, heaven forbid, like so many things can happen. And it is like you said, well, talk to your guidance counselor, talk to your guidance counselor. Okay, well, you've got an appointment in 2 weeks, or many schools, again, I work with some schools and they do have sort of drop in days, but those drop in days are very specific. Select your
Mm,
courses for next year. Um, I mean, I have so much respect for teachers, for guidance counselors, for the education system. They are all working so
yeah.
hard, and um, with very little time and resources.
Yeah. Yeah. Dealing with so many unique challenges that,
Mhm.
um, that many teachers didn't have when you and I were students. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. One of the things, about that mental health that I just wanted to touch upon was, when I was in grad school, I remember in the counseling program, I remember we were required to take a course in career counseling.
Mhm.
And I remember, like, it was a mandatory course. It wasn't an elective. And I remember thinking, like, career counselor, I don't want to do I'm not doing any career assessments, right?
Yeah.
But my attitude completely changed once after that first lecture because the instructor at the time made a really good point that I still remember to this day, which was that, when you look at, 5 days a week and you're working, let's just say 40 hours, not including the commute time. So let's say, you got another 10, 15 hours to that a week. And then, you add where you're like thinking about work on top of that. It's about like one third of your life when you just do the math, 168 hours in a week. And then you add, probably 60 hours there, 50 to 60. But so you can imagine, like, what if you hate what you do in those 50 hours? Imagine what that does to your mental health,
Yeah.
right? Like you were saying earlier on, like, just doing something and it's like, oh, I got to do this. And you dread doing that. That will have such an impact on your mood, the way you interact with other people, everything, every part of your life.
It's your identity for most
Right.
people, and I
Right.
and I think as much as we can say, "No, you are not, what you do, what your career, there's much more to you." It's correct.
Sure.
However,
There
and
is.
this is what, you're confirming this is regardless of someone where they're at, we still continue to ask, are you a student? What are you studying? Where are you working? Who pays the bills?
Yeah.
And um, that impacts, and it's probably why I love the area of career exploration, the identity piece, that transitions, because it's so critical.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I, I sometimes, I mean, obviously, you don't go to a hospital because it's not an emergency because you don't know what you want to do. But I almost wish that that was a piece, and like you said, integral in psychiatry, psychology, counseling in general, because at the core, when I talk to someone or when I meet someone who is ill, who is sick, um, when we come back to it, it's something about that identity, things that I wish I had gone into this program. I wish I had studied this. I wish I had gone for this job. I wish I had left my job sooner.
Yeah.
And all of those things, it's that occupation piece. I mean, that is how society is set up. And it impacts. I mean, I've had friends over the years who get laid off, and I think, wow, like this was someone who was doing a great job. They were. It certainly wasn't about their talent. It was, but their business decisions. And what does the business do? It gives you a package. They give you some career counseling, but for most of those individuals, they have it's a personal hit. It's
Yeah.
something that, "Oh my goodness, someone doesn't value what I did." Even if they
Mm.
tell you, "No, it wasn't your performance."
Yeah.
The
It's not
reality.
you, it's me.
Yeah, that's right. Isn't that the worst thing to hear? Um, and when you experience that, it does shake you. And
Yeah.
I think we underestimate that it doesn't just shake that one individual, it shakes the family, the
Yeah. It
kids,
shakes the
all of a
community.
sudden, who saw
Yeah.
mom or dad,
Yeah.
work for I don't know how many years, and all of a sudden, we are in a, individuals go into a scarcity mentality. They go into, oh my goodness, there's not enough jobs for me. I'm hearing that a lot from youth. Like, what's the point? What's this? And I my my handle on Twitter for a long time actually was Hopeful Helen, because to me, at the core of counseling, at the core of looking at your identity careers, is there has to be an element of hope. News these days is all, we're in a time of so much negativity that there
Yeah.
has to be hope for youth, that if you look at sort of where you want to have an impact, what you want to do, the people, something as simple as, do you want to work outdoors, or would you like to identify as being in an office? Those things aren't asked to kids.
Right.
It's look up sort of, what are the salaries for this area? And I do my best to really, I had read a book back in my early 20s, you know, do what you love and the money will follow. And in your 20s, it's like, but I do, I look back at my own career, and it's true.
Yeah.
It's if you get at the core of your identity, what makes you tick, what's going to excite you. I'm excited about what I do. It shows. I hear it all the time, like, oh my goodness, the difference you made on my son or daughter was that they were having limiting thoughts, that they were thinking all about the scarcity, and you reminded them of, know that there's a lot of opportunities. And I think we need to do that more. We don't do enough
Hmm.
of it.
Hmm.
All news certainly doesn't do it.
Hmm.
And that's where I think, um, the families, to me, is a key part. When I'm starting a relationship with a student, it's having a conversation also of what are the expectations of the parent. You hit on it earlier. What's happening with these parents and saying, I really, really wish I could go into, I wish I could be a chartered accountant, and that's a career that's going to be stable. And you talk to the son or daughter, it's like, that's what my mom or dad says I need to do. When I'm talking
Yeah.
about the transition of high school, it's not just careers. It's looking at what um, what education is going to be best suited. Not everyone, I think we have a big push on, university. Uh, Obviously, that I've gone through, and there is incredible value, but not every student is at that stage. And there are so many other opportunities that parents aren't seeing as well, in terms of colleges, in terms of trades. There's many, many pathways. And to me, once I light that up for the student, that there are different opportunities, part of it is like, okay, let me talk to my mom about it. And
Hmm.
that's when it changed to, okay, let me talk to your mom about it as
Okay.
well.
Where you speak to them, Helen. You're saying, yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
I
That's a
think I
great,
started
great
on the
intervention.
model that I think I started the model on, no, I'm only working with you. But the reality is, without talking to the caregivers, the
Mm.
guardians, that that shift is not just in the student.
Hmm.
It's about opening up to, they might be going through their own transition themselves.
Hmm.
And I think, again, as a parent and in my training and in my experience, it was the hardest thing to do. My daughter is now graduated, and she's working. My son is still a student, actually, at Waterloo. But I remember thinking, I need someone else to help you, because as a mom, I didn't want to interfere with the relationship as a parent, as a mom. That I had a colleague, and I said, okay, we should switch. I'll let you have some conversations with my son, and I'll have with your son. She happened to be in a different province, so it was really easy to do. But there is something that um, as you know, that an outside, someone with expertise in this area can really get the student thinking about different
Yeah.
options.
Yeah, they see something else. So I want to touch upon something here. You really like just hearing you talk is just what a great resource you are. And so for all of those watching right now, like I would highly recommend, if you find yourself or one of your children, a loved one who is going through a transition or they're about to enter a transition, whether career or not, give Helen a call at Azul Education, and I'll share her contact info later on. But so, Helen, walk me through what happens. So, somebody calls you up. Let's just say it's someone in their 20s or 30s. So, let's just say it's an adult.
Mhm,
They
mhm,
call you up. They call you up saying, "Hey, I was doing this job. I got laid off. It might be a blessing in disguise because I never really liked it, but I'm not sure what to do next." What's
mhm,
the
mhm.
process? What happens after that?
Yeah. So at first, it's they've presented is a situation they're in,
Mm,
and my role I find in the beginning is to get as many details as I can, because in those facts that they're stating, it's to dive deeper into looking at how did they get there. So what was the career exploration process to get there? Was it something that they wanted to? Was it something that they fell into? Was it someone that impacted them and you should really do this? And encourage them to do their own career exploration of what got them there. After that, it's for some, it's a complete reset of looking at, okay, let's start from now. But for many, I will say it's, no, I kind of like what I do. I just didn't like
mhm.
where it's working, or I didn't like,
Right.
it wasn't the right company culture. I hear that a lot.
Oh.
And it's looking at, okay, well, what are, and, you know, I use various, because there's a difference between assessment counseling, as you know. So
Mhm.
for some, it is utilizing some personality assessments. I love using something that's called challenge cards that was developed by someone who had been career counseling for many years and wanted to explore that idea of
Challenge cards?
challenge cards. Yeah.
Mm, mm.
It's from Spark. I'll send you some info, but
Sure. We'll
what
put
I
in the
what I
show
use
notes.
there is rather than looking at job titles, it's looking at problems that they'd like to work on or interest them. And it's a series of, well, now it's all digital, of course, but when in person, it was cards. And that the student is able to kind of say yes, no to. So it's really kind of um, breaking it down to things of, are you interested in the environment? Are you interested in healthcare? Are you interested in learning, teaching? All of those things, as opposed to, are you interested in being a teacher? Are you interested in
Got
being,
it.
so
Okay.
to break
Smart.
that
Got it.
down, that this isn't about identifying the job that you're going to have forever. It's about identifying an area you want to explore, that you like, that you have some skills, because you're right, that's still
Yeah.
part of it. And from there, I have, we do the career exploration. We work together. I work on through Google Sheets, actually, with students or any individual, and we start narrowing it down, because there are themes that come up, and those themes
Oh,
can come from outside of school. Those themes can be from, I worked with a student, and what was affecting them the most actually was the health of various family members. They were concerned about um, ageism, um, meaning their parents were aging. Sorry, I shouldn't have said ageism. I just mean like
yeah.
healthcare for elderly, healthcare for others. And then it was breaking it down into what type of impact. Is it actually working in healthcare, as in nursing? Is it physiotherapy? Is it working with body function? Is it working with in gerontology, where they are truly just treating an advanced age? Or is it more general? where it isn't a population age, it's the activity they're going to do. And that is influence, I should say, by everything from where you live, your culture, your what you've been exposed to.
Right.
And
The
then I
environment.
think
Yeah.
environment, absolutely. And I think that's the piece that we don't give enough thought to. And I could say that even about myself at the time, is how much influence is on meeting societal expectations as opposed to your own individual hopes, wishes, interests, values. Um, it's always to me what I find. I mean, and you talk about growth. That's where I see growth when
Yeah.
they start to see that there's more than their current situation.
Yeah.
An individual comes in, these are the facts. I'm down. I'm frustrated. I'm upset. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. To, okay, I do have things I'm interested in. There are opportunities out there. Let's build where my interests are, what's out there that I can contribute to. And then a piece again where in my practice, one of the things right in the beginning is identified to me over the years that one of the strongest influence is mentorship. Whether you're 16 or 26, if you have an idea that you're very interested in, before you jump into it, is have a chance to speak with someone who's already there.
Right.
So if you on my website, you'll see that yes, there's staff, but there's also education associates. And most of them, well, all of them actually, have either pursued post-secondary in different areas and have identified that, if you're in high school and you want to know what it's like to study at Dalhousie in um, education, I'm available for 5-10 minutes. I think we have, as a society, not put enough emphasis on helping each other without being a professional. So
Mm.
there is a need for professional guidance to explore, but there's also connections need to be made, particularly for youth when they feel so disconnected, when they feel
Mm.
like I don't see how to get there. I don't know how to get through that bridge.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Oh, I think it's a great point. It's a great resource. Um, and also hearing you talk is I could see the application of like some counseling interventions because when somebody comes in, they're stressed about their career, unsure of where to go, or perhaps they're just stressed out about what they're doing. But that through this process of talking, you're listening to some of their core values. You're listening to some of the themes that are
mhm,
emerging, right? Some of their interests, some of their skills, but you're listening to even the circumstances in their life right now, as you were
mhm,
saying, right?
mhm.
So I think it's a good point, which is that the things you might be interested in doing or want to get good at today might be different than they were 15 years ago
Mhm.
and different for 15 years into the future. So it
Yeah.
really is a bit fluid, but despite that, there is some core, like you're saying, some core attributes, some core
Mhm.
personality traits, some core skills that
I
will
I
help
wanna
them.
emphasize that there's personal counseling and career counseling. There are times that the career counseling sort of touches on the personal counseling where a referral is needed. That is way beyond my capacities. It
Sure.
it is something that I mean, I think we need to work in partnership always.
Yeah.
Individuals that are in a process, um, they might find out their own limitations.
Yeah.
That's reality. And if there is something that requires a more deep dive into that, that is where, I mean, just as you are, as a psychologist, having a better understanding of helping through those challenges, those, I often say, when a student or an individual career changer says, I'm stuck, I usually say, I can help you wiggle that out. I can help
Mm,
you sort of show what are the opportunities. But in that kind of opening up, there may appear something that has not been dealt with, that
right.
is beyond career
Right.
counseling, that
Right.
is personal counseling. And for me, the important part there is demonstrating, encouraging them, and motivating them to see that that can help them with their career exploration.
Yeah.
That it is, um, I think, I'm sure you've experienced this, individuals that would really benefit from a counseling relationship.
Yeah.
But for some cultures, it's just something we don't do. We will deal with it
Yeah.
within our own community, within our own families. Um, I've done over the past 4 years many free presentations for parents. And I think what I have found in the audience that shows up, and they're generally Zoom sessions, is parents that they want to help their kids. At core, of course, that is the key. But they too don't know anything about the process.
Yeah.
They've come from a culture that if your parent did this, then this is what you go into. Um, and the individuals have not had role models of other occupations. And those sessions, it's usually one or two parents that said, you hit me to my core. I've never even thought of that. I never even thought that my child should identify something that's going to make them happy,
Mm,
because that's not the way they were brought up.
mm-hmm.
Work was work. You did
Mm-hmm.
the work to provide for your family.
Mm,
And my thoughts on that is yes. And how about you do it in a way that you can go home still happy, still content, so that you can be the best with your family. If
yeah.
you come home and you see your child and you can't light up to them, there's something there,
Mm,
because they see it.
mm-hmm.
I've worked with students that's what they've seen. Both my parents come home, they're exhausted. The last thing they want to do is talk to me about what do I want to do. They just want me to finish my homework, get good grades, go to a good school,
Yeah.
and be independent.
Yeah.
And my thoughts are to help your child be independent, help them identify their thought process, what's going to keep them engaged in their life. Um, and to know also that it's a fluid process, because you're right. This can hit someone in their 30s, 40s, and beyond.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Right.
That's
There's no
actually
shame in that.
no, not at all. It's like you said. Sometimes it's a blessing when you've left one opportunity. It's something that you were too scared to try, and yet all of a sudden here you are, and it's a time really that you can flourish, as opposed to feeling like the doors just slammed and you have no options.
That's right. Helen, I've really enjoyed this. I've learned a tremendous amount. It's such an interesting area, fascinating area, because, like I said, I touch upon it, a few times, for to come in my sessions with certain clients, and but it was really great to get this other more in depth perspective about it, especially around, searching for one's values. Who are they at
Mhm,
the core? Such important pieces to consider when a person is looking for their occupation. Helen,
mhm.
how can we find out more about you? Where
Probably
can they find your services?
Yeah, probably the easiest way online. My website is Azul Education Services. If you're looking on social media, we do our best. We're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and just Azul Education. Azul is actually means blue in
Mm,
Portuguese,
mhm,
and to me, blue is the ocean, the sky, possibilities, opportunities,
mm,
and education. Because I think education is not just in a brick and mortar building. Education is what happens with us when there's growth. And so if you look up Azul Education, type it in, you will see Blue, you will see me. And really, my hopes is that I can help youth individuals in growing and learning and exploring where do they want to be, and looking at their values, looking at their interests, and where they see themselves that they can best contribute.
Right. Excellent. Helen, thank you. And everyone out there, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. Check out our website, psychologyforgrowth.com. And as well, check out Helen's website, Azul Education, where you get some fantastic connections and taking that next step and to have a more fulfilling and meaningful career. Thank you, Helen, and everyone.
Thank
Hope this.
you.
You're very
Thank you,
welcome. And
Dr.
everyone, hope.
Amaral. This was such a pleasure speaking with you. And I think there's such an overlap, and I look forward to more discussions and working with you.
Same here. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.